Greetings, everybody, from Grace Ministries at Rafa. We're also known as Trinitarian Grace International. Obviously, we have an international flavor because we have people that come to us from all over the world, various places at different times. Also, thank y'all here in the chapel for being here. Obviously, we are here at the Rafa Treatment Center in the big city of Attala, Alabama, and we're glad that you're here. If you're just here for the donuts, that's fine. At least you're here, right? And maybe you'll hear something. For some reason, before I started, I had something just came over me to say this. And please, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Just remember, and this applies to everybody on the screen and here, all things that are done in darkness will come to light. Amen. Just remember that. Amen. So it never fails. It never fails. It never fails. I know that. I've been in doing this kind of thing around the treatment centers. This is my 35th year. So, I didn't just start yesterday. I started day 4 yesterday. But anyway, I just said that so you know that I kind of know what I know, and I'm also one of you. I'm not greater than or less than. And as our LMA program says, we are all recovering from something. And some people say, well, what other stuff? Well, we got alcohol and drug problems. Well, there's all kind of problems. We got along with that, there's people on here that on our screen up here, I know, and in this chapel too, that don't have troubles with alcohol or drugs. They don't have, that's not their thing, but they got problems. It's amazing. I did a presentation yesterday to Dr. Fred from Kenya, his group that meets every Saturday around noon, about 11 our time now. And most of them on there are Africans from Kenya and different countries. And it amazes me that they have people like me and Doug and others speak. And it's just amazing that we started out right here in this chapel, formed this ministry, and now we got a footprint all over the place. And just think how ironic it is. We're in Alabama, in Attala, Alabama, and some of our best committed viewers are from the continent of Africa. God has got a sense of humor, and God also teaches us lessons about, I know what I want you to do, and I know who I want to hear what you have to say. We're all included in this thing. No matter what race you are, what country you're from, whether you speak, quote, English or not, or Spanish or Swahili, because we have folks on here that know how to speak Swahili. They can't quite got me where I can speak that yet, but I've listened to it some. And I love my brothers from Africa and the sisters from Africa. They've started a women's group now that meets once a week, and the women from that spun off of this ministry, and they've started a group for the women, just for them to meet and get together. They had me speak at that one week, and I'm like, oh no, what I talk about? God always gives me something to talk about. I talked about yesterday fear, and Doug was talking about it earlier before we came on live on air. My title of my message was "Fear Not," and he was talking about a book that he got and started reading some years ago, and he realized that it says in there the most common what would you call it, admonition or suggestion or command or whatever that Jesus gave was not straighten your butt up or my father's going to roast you like a weenie. Not you better quit this. Not you better quit that. You know what? The most common statement that Jesus Christ made in the scriptures: fear not. Fear not. Don't be afraid. So I think there's some significance to that. There's the book. He just held it up. Race Awakening by Charles Swindoll. And it's in that book. He's talking about that. So thank you, Doug, for sharing that. I got a topic today that I don't know, it just came to me. I spoke on it a couple of years ago, I think, because, obviously pastors, counselors, whoever we're going to say stuff over and over because, we only got so much material. You got the Bible, and then you got your life experience, and that's pretty much it. But we all got a lot of stuff in common. I see if I can find that old PowerPoint I got on here, and let's see if it shows up. No, it ain't dadgum canceled. I done paid for that. All right. They trying to shyster me. Is that showing up now? All right. I don't know why I'm not seeing y'all. Oh, there's what I need to see right there. That's pretty cool. This first time I ever been able to do that. Now let me move it. But anyway, I'll get around to getting started here. We have some mottos that I like to repeat every week, especially for the new guys. We have 3 mottos that we really like to stick by. God is not mad at you. God's not out to get you. He's not out to punish you for all that old stuff you've done that I've done. He's not mad at you. All are included, every one of us. White, black, brown, in between, mixture thereof, male, female, we're all included. We all have the same blood, and it's the blood of God. And the gospel is for all kinds of people in all kinds of places. And today I'm going to talk about a Hebrew word, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's pronounced HINENI. See that on the screen? HINENI. Any of you are familiar with Leonard Cohen? Yeah, probably not. Look him up sometime. He's dead now. He's a Canadian. He's kind of like a folk singer or whatever. He had a song that he used that word in, and it was I think You Want It Darker is the name of the song, but he got some interesting stuff. And this word HINENI. I want to talk about it a minute, then I'm going to see how that applies to us. There's a powerful word in Hebrew that sums up 3 words in English. The word is HINENI, which means here I am. But if you got to watch how you say it, because it's a way of expressing total readiness to give oneself. It's an offer of total availability. When God called out to Moses from the burning bush, y'all heard the story of the burning bush, right? Moses replied in Hebrew, HINENI. And you know what assignment he was given. It was a pretty tough job he got there. And what happened next? When God approached Abraham, y'all know Abraham was the one that he was about to sacrifice his son before the Spirit of God stopped him. When he was approached through the Spirit to offer his only son as a sacrifice, kind of like a prelude to what God was going to do later, Abraham responded, HINENI, not knowing what was about to. He said that before he realized what he was about to be asked to do. God called out to the young boy Samuel 3 times before Samuel. Samuel was a prophet, and he says, called out to him 3 times before Samuel finally responded, HINENI, I'm listening. I'm ready. Many hundreds of years later, God asked who would go for him in Isaiah 6. And the prophet willingly offered himself with a cry of HINENI, send me. Now, all of us are on a journey. We're all at different places in our journey. And in particular, you guys here at the rehab, you're in a journey to try to, quote, get better, right? You know, the funny thing about that thing when we're trying to get better, and we go and someone was sharing with us this morning that, they thought they had it figured out. I've heard that story many, many times. There's no shame in that you think you had it figured out and realize that you didn't quite have it figured out. Well, one of the things that we all do sometimes, we think we gotta, and I've said this before, and I want you to remember this, those of us that are struggling with different types of addictions, stop trying so hard. Quit saying, I'm not, I can't, and start saying I am and I can do. Focus on that side of it and we realize that it's kind of like God says, I am. He doesn't say I am not. And if God resides in you, and I believe he does, and he resides in me, then I am. I am. I don't walk around saying I am not able to get sober. I am not able to get clean. I am not able. You say I am able. I am. And you have the power. Man, just think about it. The power of God resides in and around us. And I want you to believe this because it's true. And the power of God is the same power that parted the Red Sea, the same power that healed cripples and healed blind people. I believe this. It's happened all through the ages. God heals in his own time, and he does it. We'll all be completely healed at one time someday in the future. And so we got all that going for us. And if I got the same power that parted a daggum sea, I mean, there's proof over there in the Red Sea. People, always trying to question these things. They found chariots and stuff at the bottom of that sea, right where the story says that the Egyptians were crossing. But there's another story about that too. I don't think those Egyptians are condemned forever either, but that's another sermon for another day. So if you're here and you're wanting to get better and you're trying to do all this, what do you say when you're asked to do things? Do you just do what you think you should do? Or do you do what your counselor asks you to do? Do you do what the books or the scriptures or the chaplain and those folks, do you do what they ask you to do? I'll give you a suggestion. I've been doing this a long time, as I said. I didn't get this blonde hair. I mean, gray hair for nothing. If you're asked to do something or to try something, if it's not illegal or immoral, do it. You can always, you and me and everybody that's got different issues, not just us here with these substance abuse issues, but everybody. You can always go back to doing what you were doing. That's always open to you, right? So try something different just for a little while. Give yourself 6 months or whatever it is, or a year is even better. Try doing this something different for a year. And if it doesn't get better and things don't get better in your life, come back and tell me. I've never had nobody come back and tell me that. Now they've come back and told me, hey, I messed up. I did this. And that's okay. As our friend Doug here did a sermon here one week, when you fall, at least fall forward. Don't fall back, fall forward. And just get up, dust your little britches off and keep moving. And get over it. You don't have to be eat up with shame and guilt because you stumble and fall. What man or woman never stumbles and falls? The ones that lie about it. Everybody stumbles and falls sometimes. It may be different things for different people, but we all stumble and fall. And so when they come and ask you, are you ready? Think about it. You can even say it in Hebrew now. You say, HINENI. I'm ready, my Lord. Think about that as we go on with this. One day, we talked about the story of the burning bush. One day, when Moses was tending his flock in the wilderness, now this is after Moses had committed a murder, okay? Moses was raised by the Pharaoh's daughter, kind of like a step kid, and he was one of the Hebrews. She saved him from being killed when he was a baby, raised him, and he was like living in the royal. And he was out one day and he saw these people whipping one of his Hebrew brothers. They were slaves. And he killed that soldier. He committed murder. And he had to run. Some of us know what that's like. I do. He ran. And that's where he's at. He's living out. He found him a wife, got married. Instead of living in the with the royal family, he's out in the wilderness tending flocks and has got him a wife and living out there. And this is when this happens in his life. He's tending his flock in the wilderness, having fled from Egypt, as I just told you about, now living with his wife and sons in Midian. He come upon an unusual sight. a long bush among the desert scrub ablaze. He walks up and there's a bush with flames coming off of it. What would you think? If you're not doing acid or something, you would like, hey, what is going on here? A little side note, there is a plant in parts of the world called a Dictymus albus. You may have heard of that. Well, why haven't you heard of that? It's a plant that secretes oil on its leaves. And it gets so hot by the sun, they turn into flames sometimes and flash up and burn, and the oil burns off and the bush is not consumed. This is not to say that this didn't happen with Moses. I'm telling you that to confirm that it happened with Moses. That he did see a burning bush, that you could go over me. We could possibly see a burning bush. Now, I may not hear the booming voice. I believe that too. I believe something spoke to him, whether it was a booming voice or whether he just heard it in his mind, because God speaks to me in my mind, in my voice. God speaks to you in your voice. So I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not saying that, but that was just a little side note that there is a such thing as burning bushes. It's not fantasy land. And he looked at it. I mean, this bush is burning. He's like freaking out, I'm sure. So he paused to look at it. And as he stood a while, gazing at the bush, he slowly began to realize that it was not just an unusual sight. Nothing else around it was burning. It wasn't a prairie fire, as we call them out west. It was just that bush. That bush was flaming. It was astonishing. Somebody's phone was ringing. That's probably my wife's. But it was astonishing. A bush aflame, but not being consumed. Riveted by this vision, he chose to draw closer. Now, here's what I want you to get out of this. He saw this. This would probably be a frightening thing, right? And rather than running, he leaned in and got closer to get a better look. It was at that moment that God seemed to finally choose Moses. Do you think he would have? I don't know. I'm just saying, speculating here. If Moses had freaked out and took off running, do you think he would have still chose Moses? I don't know. But here it's indicating that Moses leaned in. He leaned in and saw and got closer. He wanted to see what this is all about. And it's indicating here that maybe then God said, this is the man for the job I have. Because, you know, he's the one that led the Hebrews out of captivity into freedom, into quote what we call the promised land. Perhaps it was because of his intense curiosity, his ability to bear witness to the inexplicable. He's curious. He's wanting to see what this phenomenon is, and then not to shrink from its presence. Perhaps it was because Moses held off judgment, refusing to give in to superstitions. How many of us do that sometimes? Or conjure up easy or fantastical explanations, but rather chose to be present to the moment of awe and mystery. That one's a good one for us. Sometimes when we're trying to get better, we need to remain present in the moment. And as Paul Young, let's don't future trip and worry about what's going to happen next week or next month or what if, or we, as it teaches us in this recovery circle, we're not to forget the past or shut the door on it, but it don't mean you have to dwell on it and always walk around regretting. You use the past as something to learn from, not something to regret, because if you believe in God, whatever you've done is washed away. And you ain't got to come up here and get down and give me no magical prayer, because that's nowhere in the scriptures. This so-called, and I get in trouble for this one, but I'll just say what I say. The so-called sinner's prayer, how many of you have heard that all your life? It's nowhere in the Bible. It's not, there's no sinner's prayer. That was made up by men. And that's okay. It's not wrong to say that. It's not wrong to have a prayer like that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not like a mandatory thing. If you don't say this prayer, you're not getting in, buddy. You're as close to God right there sitting in that chair in your mind as anybody on the face of the earth is at this moment. Everybody, you're as close to him as anybody. You're as close to him. I've been doing this preacher thing for, I don't know, 15 years, I guess, or somewhere in that ballpark. That don't make me any closer to God than you are. Now, I may have got to a point where I kind of believe some more things or ponder on some things, or I have got to the point where as I started out, I don't live in fear near as much as I did in my early life. The fear I had in my early life was that I would be found out. Y'all get where I'm coming from? There's things in my life I don't want people to know about. That's the way we live our life. I've done things. I've did shameful things. I've done embarrassing things. I'm talking. You can say the same thing, every one of us, and we don't want to be found out. I got news for us, folks. We're already found out. As I said in the beginning, everything in darkness always comes to light. Now, I don't mean they're going to put it up on a bulletin board out on the interstate, but the creature, the being, the absolute creator of all things knows it. God, Father, Son, and Spirit knows the beginning from the end. And as I said yesterday, and I got to repeat it, sometimes there's times when I don't have walking around sense because I let life get all tangled up and worried about this or that. Chill out. I don't have to fear that stuff. He knows the beginning from the end, and he's got all of it covered. And he tells us more than he tells us anything else. Fear not, and try some of this stuff. Just like Moses, instead of fearing that burning bush, he leaned in, and I want to learn more about it. You may be here at this, and you may be your first time or 10th time or whatever time you've tried this. It doesn't matter, as long as this is the best time. When you start being taught things, don't back away and grumble about it. Lean in and say, well, okay, I want to learn more about that. Or I want to do this part, but I don't want to do that part. It's kind of like the thing around the 12-step program. I've been traveling in those circles a long time. And somebody said this one I did catch on Tuesday. I've had people tell me, you know what? I like this old 12-step stuff and all that, but I just don't get the spiritual part. I said, well, that's because it's not a part. Spiritual is not a part. Spiritual is the whole shebang. The whole program is spiritual, whether you walk down the quote Christian path or whatever path you choose to walk down, it's still spiritual. It's based on spiritual. I've repeated this many times here. I've seen many men and women come to these type of places and things get better. You get a decent job. You start getting a little money in your pocket. You're feeling better. You're looking better. You're dressing better. You shaping your beards up. You cleaning up. You getting a haircut. You're looking good. And you ready. And you go. And then you come back. If you're lucky. If you're lucky, you get to come back. You know what happened? That's spiritual. It's just like in the Bible. What does he say? When they built the house and they didn't put a foundation under it, when the first storm come up, what happened to the house? It washed away. Work on your foundation before you pretty up the house. The foundation is God, Father, Son, Spirit. And I hope that would become the God of your understanding. But everybody's got their own theology. At 2:00 in the morning, when you're laying there dreaming about home, I hope you dream about home, or whatever it is, when you're laying there thinking, I wish I could get out of this dadgum place and all that. Well, there's no fence. So, there you go. There's the answer. All you got to do is leave. But the thing is, if you're thinking about God or spiritual things, your thoughts are going to be a little different than the guy next to you. right? So we all kind of have our own theology, so to speak. But Moses was curious about what that was. Let us be curious. When we're being taught stuff, lean in and be curious about learning more about this stuff. If you're here again, or if it's your first time or ever, it don't matter. The only thing you missed was probably building the foundation. You probably did a good job building the house, but you skipped over on the foundation. I helped years ago when I was incarcerated. They brought us down to clean up after a bunch of tornadoes up on the mountain up here. And they brought us down from state prison and they had us out there working. And this whole community was wiped. The tornado wiped it out. But you could look out through there and you know what I saw everywhere? Foundations. Foundations were sitting everywhere. The houses were gone, but the foundations were there. Do you get my point? Work on your foundation. And then, even if your house does get blown away for some reason, because you're going to face troubles, and we all are, if you still got the foundation, it's easier to rebuild. Think about it. Whatever it was, God chose Moses, called his name Moses, Moses. Moses answered, as did Abraham, Jacob before him, and Samuel after him. HINENI, here I am. So, a stunning response. HINENI is a pure, astonished, unguarded affirmation given before all the facts are known. That's kind of like, do you know where you want to go? Do you know what your journey is? Do you have dreams and goals? You should. And if you see somebody and you're drawn to them, if you're drawn to them and you think that they're teaching you the right thing, you can say, I'm ready. Show me the way. And the real teaching will come from within anyway. It's a spontaneous, unequivocal commitment promising, I am here, where and as you found me. Fully attentive, paying attention, focused, all in, and even more, I am here, all of me, with all that I am and all that I can be. HINENI is a response of sacred and undiluted presence, a response in which the self sheds all reservations, which expands the boundaries of self, indicating a readiness to receive and respond to whatever experience is about to unfold. Whatever you're going through here at the treatment center or online or whoever you are, whatever you got going on, think about it. Are you ready? Are you ready for whatever God has for you? Or like a lot of times, God has a plan for all of us, but guess what happens? We get in the way. We get in the way and mess it up because we say, well, I thank you for getting me this far, God. I got it from here. And we usually know how that works out. It is brave and humble. It is the kind of response we offer only a few times in our life. Things like you're going through right now is a big thing, man. This is a big thing. This is like a major place where you're a turning point that can change your whole world and your whole life and the whole way you see things. And as you do that, it changes the way that people see you. Think about it. There's some of us in this room, there was a time and place that nobody would even give us the time of day. You hear me? You're not working here. No, you're not coming around my house. No, no, no. That has changed for many of us and is in the process of being changed for many others. It always happens that way. You don't have to talk your way into people trusting you. All you got to do is be trustworthy. You don't have to talk people into thinking you're honest. All you got to do is be honest. And if you're faking and shaking, I know many are. There's some in this room that, full of bovine scuba right now. I understand that. I do. I mean, that's okay. That's where you are in your life right now. But just remember, all things come to light. whether it comes to light to the public or if it just comes to light to you, you finally say, man, why don't I quit? Why don't I quit bull crapping and take this stuff serious? Think about it. That's your thing. The future might, when we gaze into a newborn's eyes and promise we will never let them down, when we promise ourselves as we enter a new year of our lives, be all that we can be. That's the kind of thing when you look at your child and say, I'm responsible for this child. And then we fall short. We meant well. We said we was going to take care of them, but we ended up not doing it like we said. Or even recovery. We talk about, I'm going to do this. I got this. And you meant it and you believed it. But it didn't work out because we didn't listen to others and we built the house before we did the foundation. Real quickly, Luke 22, 32, 34. But I'll pray for you, Simon. We're talking about Peter. You know Peter, the old guy that cut the guy's ear off and all that. He was a tough guy. He was one of the disciples. Was one of these. He had a little violent streak at him. You know what I mean? Some of you can relate to that, I'm sure. But I'll pray for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back and strengthen your brothers. But he replied to the Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death. You ever had your friends tell you that? I'm with you, bro. You can count on me. Jesus answered, I'll tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny 3 times that you know me. Come on now. I guarantee you that when Peter said that out of his mouth, he meant it. But when he seen Jesus getting the crap beat out of him, and them dudes standing around with them big swords and all that stuff, and he like, guess what hit him? Fear. Fear. And they said, ain't you one of the guys that hangs out with him? I don't even know that dude. You've had friends do you like that, hadn't you? But let's get real honest. We've done friends like that probably at one point or another. We've all been a hypocrite at one time or another. Everybody. Hypocrites are welcome in this chapel. Because if you admit you're a hypocrite, that means you're starting to be honest with yourself. We've all been hypocrites at one time or another. Think about it. Acts 21, 12, 14. When we heard this, we and the people were pleading with Paul. You know, Paul's the other one who was the guy that was running around having followers of Christ, having them killed. It was against that thing. And then he got struck blind, got converted. Then he became the guy that wrote most of the New Testament from prison, of all things. And then he went around trying to talk about Jesus. And don't you think them people, they were like, I ain't gonna trust that dude. I'm not trusting that guy. He was trying to kill us a month or 2 ago. Why are you weeping and breaking my heart? He's talking to these people. They're trying to get him not to go to Jerusalem because they know he's going to get in trouble up there. I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die in Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus. When he would not be dissuaded, we gave up and said, the Lord's will be done. That's the thing. Let the Lord's will be done. If you're ready to really take this stuff seriously, say, HINENI, I'm ready, my Lord. Isaiah 6, 7 and 9. With it he touched my mouth and said, see, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin is atoned for. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send and whom will go for us? And I said, here I am. Isaiah said, here I am. HINENI, send me. Go tell this, listen to this. Go tell the people, this people, be ever hearing, but never understanding. Be ever seeing, but never perceiving. There's going to be people that don't understand things, even though it's told. There's people in this room sometimes, we hear things, but we don't understand it. Are you ready? I'm asking you right now, are you ready? Are you ready to go where God sends you? And I don't mean I'm trying to talk you into being a preacher or nothing, but are you ready to live a new life? Are you ready to get away from all that mess that's held you down, that's got your family all in? Because everything we do to hurt ourselves, it hurts people close to us. So pray and ponder. Are you ready? And just for funds, repeat with me right now. I'm ready, my Lord.
Ready, my Lord.
And you want to get clean and sober. You want your life to get better. You want that foundation built before that house gets built. Just say, Lord, I'm ready. HINENI, I'm ready. And I'm gonna close with I'm gonna close. They're saying, thank God you're gonna close. I'm gonna, I'm gonna close with a poem. Anybody know who Barry Bryant was? You better know who he was, or we're gonna have a problem. Barry Bryant was a very renowned, obviously, football coach, University of Alabama, the first one to put him on the map per se. Uh, back in the day, and he was kind of a unique old crusty guy, smoked cigarettes, drank bourbon, and all that. But he had this unique thing of teaching those kids how to get the best out of them and all that. But he had a poem that he read that he wouldn't to them a lot of time, and it was, this is the one I'm gonna read to you and for all of us. And the title of it was Don't Quit. I got this on a plaque somewhere that somebody gave me because somebody told me one time years ago when I was just coming out of all my troubles, but I was going through a lot of stuff. I was trying to get better. I was trying to get educated. I was trying to work in my mind, make up for things. And this guy told me, he said, man, this reminds me of you. He said, because you just won't quit. You won't quit. You just keep grinding. I wanted to quit plenty of times, but I hadn't been able to do it. I'm gonna read this to you in closing. Don't quit. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns. And many a fellow turns out about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. When he learned too late, when the night came down, how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And when you never can tell how close you are, it may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit. Amen.
Amen.